We're almost there, Rube. Just a few days away from the Eagles opener.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, there's nothing like opening day. It seems like the off season goes on forever, and you're dealing with free agency and the draft and mini camps, and then training camp goes on forever. And it's just like, get here, opening day. Let's just get going. So can't wait. I'm excited. My 34th opening day on the Eagles beat.
Wow, that's exciting. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast, and that's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave
You sound
Zangaro.
excited. Wow, that's
I did my
exciting.
best. I get the Oscar for that one. Ray Didinger joins us in just a bit. We're going to go through, as promised, the entire matchup against the Falcons, where it looks like the Eagles have an advantage, where they might have a disadvantage, and we'll break it all down every way we can. And then at the end of the pod, we want to kind of get into some strengths and weaknesses of this team in general before the first game. We want to put those on record. Reuben, let's talk first about Jalen Reagor. We had a chance to speak with him on Thursday. It's really a big season for him. It was a disappointing rookie year, and I think he's in a good position because Devontae Smith is here now, and he's going to take a lot of the pressure off of him, but they still really need Reagor to improve this year.
Yeah, they really do. You need your first-round picks to play like first-round picks. He didn't do that last year. He talked today about how he's a different guy. People are going to see it. He said all the right things. He does seem more confident. He did have a good training camp. I don't know if the consistency was still there that you would want from him. He made some great plays, didn't make some routine plays. But I think out of the whole roster, he's one of the more intriguing players to me. I'm really curious to see what kind of season he has because – a lot of things have changed on his. I mean, he was a very young rookie. I mean, I think he was 21 last year. The quarterback was struggling. The play caller was struggling.
Who was that?
Yeah, Doug Peterson was the play caller.
Who was the quarterback?
The guy in Indy right now.
Okay.
So I think a lot of things. And then he got hurt. He missed time twice. He had 2 injuries. It was just it was a really fractured season for him, and it wasn't conducive to. And he didn't play well. I'm not making excuses. He did not play well, but he was also in a difficult position as a very young rookie, with the team falling to pieces around him, and not a lot. In the O-line. I mean, there was just so much going on. So now you have some consistency. He seems like he's matured. He comes across that way, at least I think. We will see. I mean, certainly it could just be all talk. I don't know, but I think a lot of things are in place now. He's healthy. He's had, he's had mini camps and preseason game. Well, he didn't play much. He actually did play a lot in the preseason. He's got a healthy offensive line. He seems rejuvenated. I'm really curious to see how he'll play. I'm not sold that he's going to come out and have, 850 yards and catch 55, 60 balls. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect from him. I think he'll be better than last year, but how significant that jump is, I've got to see it. He's talking a good game, but let's see it on the field.
Yeah, he better be better than last year.
Yeah,
I mean, he better be. I'm a little torn on him too because, like you mentioned, there were some really great moments in training camp, but the consistency wasn't there. I think back to his first spectacular one-handed catch because the next play he dropped an easy one, and that to me that's like a microcosm of really what we saw all summer from him. And like there's talent there and he just needs to be consistent with it. And I think Nick Sirianni is going to help. I think that offense is going to help. I think there's going to be a concerted effort to get him involved and get him going this year. But a lot of it's still on him. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure. And I'm not ready to say it's not going to work, but I look at Devontae Smith and I just think, I know he can play.
yeah.
Already, I know he can play. I don't know what to expect from Jalen Reagor, but I'll tell you this: if they get something out of Reagor this year, and Smith is what we thought he was, all of a sudden, I mean, they have 2 young receivers to grow up with, Jalen Hurts or whoever else. But those 3 could end up being a nucleus for this team.
Yeah, and that's not even taking into account Quez Watkins, who did have a great camp. I don't think he's going to be a real high volume guy, but I think he'll make some big plays. We'll see. What would be a good season for Jalen Reagor? How would you quantify it?
Numbers. I don't think he needs to. Obviously, it would be nice for him to have a 1,000-yard season, but I don't think he needs to do that to be an effective player. You know, if he has, I think you mentioned 850, that wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be like, oh, well, he was worth the 21st pick, but it would make you feel like you got something there. And if Devontae Smith ends up being your top guy and ends up being your 1,000+ yard guy, if you have your number 2 catching, 850, 950, somewhere in there, that is ideal.
Yeah. And I think about like Macklin, who didn't hit 1,000 yards, I think, till his 6th season.
And he was good. Like he actually, so Macklin came up in one of my mailbag questions, and there's such a difference between being a bust and being worth a first-round pick. Like you can argue, like Macklin clearly wasn't a bust early in his career, but you could argue he wasn't worth, what was he, 19th overall pick? You can say he wasn't worth that pick early on in his career, but he wasn't a bust either. I think that might be where we're headed with Jalen Reagor.
Middle ground. Yeah.
Nelly too. Nelly was like that. Nelly's was weirder, his career, but Macklin's probably a better. Yeah, I mean, the Nelly thing is just hard to figure out, but you're just looking at first round receivers who neither of those guys busts. Nelly probably closer, but he's not.
Freddie Mitchell bust.
Yeah, exactly. That's a bust.
Eagles have not had great luck with receivers. It's that simple. And I think that kind of goes into a lot of people's perception of Jalen Reagor. It's like, here we go again. It's understandable after last year. He caught 31 passes in 11 games for under 400 yards.
Yeah. And the perception wasn't helped by the guys who got drafted after him having big years.
And by the way he acted. I mean, he acted immature. He was, defensive about things. I don't think he was accountable. I think he was, I think he had some growing up to do, which is understandable. He was a young kid. So I'm really curious to see. And again, Devontae, I think he's going to take pressure off him on the field and off the field. I think it'll be both. So he's to me, he's one of the more intriguing guys on the roster.
Absolutely.
Hey, score big with the AAA Eagles MVP membership, along with the superb roadside assistance and discounts you've come to expect from AAA. Get exclusive Eagles-related perks. For details, visit AAA.com/Eagles.
Okay, joining us now on the Eagle Eye podcast, as he will every week, and it's been a while since we've talked to you, Ray Didinger. How are you?
I'm doing good, David. How are you?
We're great. We're excited because it's a new season just about to get underway, and it's always fun. Like no matter what the expectations are for a season, it's still fun when you get to that first game.
It is. It is because there's so much that we don't know about this team. I was thinking about that this week. I mean, I've been covering this team since 1970, which is a long time. And I don't know that I've ever gone into week one knowing less about the team that I'm going to see on Sunday. Obviously, new coach, young quarterback, all of that stuff. But, I mean, there's been so little evidence in the preseason, just the 3 games. Nick Sirianni, I mean, he gave Vanilla a bad name in this preseason. We talk about vanilla. This wasn't even vanilla, what he was running out there. I know he has more of a playbook than what he's shown, and I'm real anxious on Sunday to see what's in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's by design. We saw a little bit of it during training camp. He really valued those joint practices more than the games. So he did a little bit more, but you're right. I mean, in terms of really unleashing this offense, and he's admitted it, that they've done this for competitive advantage. Sure. We have some hints. Like we know what some of the hints are, but I'm sure there are some wrinkles to it that even we haven't seen watching the practices.
Yeah, no doubt. I would expect it to have a lot of the of an Indianapolis flavor. I would expect it to have a lot of a Frank Reich kind of influence, which is fine. I think that's really good. But there's other stuff that we just that he's just going to put his own twist on it based on his personnel. And I'm really interested. I'm really excited to see it. I kind of interested to see what Jonathan Gannon has on the other side. Just listening to both of them, listening to Sirianni talk and listening to Gannon talk, and just trying to glean some information out of what they were saying. I think they have some really good ideas. I think they seem to address a lot of the direction that pro football is going now. And I think they're, a lot depends on how the young quarterback handles the pressure, handles the spotlight, and handles the responsibility just of leading this offense. But I think they're going to be a real fascinating team to watch, and I am really, really excited about watching Devontae Smith. I think he's a great player. I mean, he's one of the most exciting college players I've seen in a very long time. And this Sunday, to me, the two best players in this college draft were Kyle Pitts and Devontae Smith. I mean, I thought they were the two best players. I mean, everybody talked about the quarterbacks. Everybody was all excited about the quarterbacks, and they went high, as they always do. But if you ask me who I think the two best players in this draft that came out, I think of the two guys you're going to see Sunday in Atlanta.
I see you talking about Kyle Pitts as well, Bucks County's own. There's so many unknowns because you have two rookie head coaches, and I think the one thing is Matt Ryan. I mean, he's a certainly known quantity at this point in his career. I mean, he's been so consistent. He doesn't really have bad years. He just goes out. I don't think he has a huge arm anymore. He's not throwing the ball down the field like he used to. But what do you see from Matt Ryan? What do you expect from Matt Ryan? What's the challenge for that Jonathan Gannon defense in its first game ever facing what I think is a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Yeah, I'm real curious to see how he and Arthur Smith work this thing out. It's going to be a lot different. I mean, I'm assuming that Smith will want to run his kind of offense, which means that Matt Ryan will be under center a lot more now than he has been in recent years, which will be a little bit of an adjustment. But Smith is a very good coach, a really good play caller, I think. And I kind of want to see. Look, people had pretty much written off Ryan Tannehill until Arthur Smith began building the offense around him, and the next thing you know, he's in a Pro Bowl and he's got them in a championship game. I'd like to see what he's going to do with Matt Ryan. I think that one of the things you see in Smith's offense is there's a lot of motion. There's a lot of stuff that sets up other stuff. Guys are open all over the place. It's a very multi-layered passing game, which is to me, it looks like it's very quarterback friendly. And it did wonders for Ryan Tannehill. So I think you take a veteran like Matt Ryan, who, Rube, I agree with you. I think he is by no means done. And you take him and you put him in this offense that I think to a large degree will play to his strengths. And you give him receivers like Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts that we talked about. I think offensively, the Falcons, defensively, I think they got some issues. But offensively, I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny because it's two rookie head coaches, and I guess there's some intrigue there because you have somewhat unknowns, but I think the Eagles are way more unknown than the Falcons are coming into this game because we've seen an Arthur Smith offense and we've seen Dean Pease for many years, whereas the Eagles we don't really know what a Nick Sirianni offense is. We have some hints. We don't really know what a Jonathan Gannon defense is. Again, we have some hints. So it's kind of been framed like that by a lot of people that here's these two rookie head coaches, but it feels like we know way less about the Eagles than we do about the Falcons, at least schematically.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I agree with you because we do know. I don't think Arthur Smith is going to change a whole lot. I think this is his philosophy. This is his playbook, and he's going to take it wherever he goes. Dean Pease, yeah, I mean, everywhere he's gone, and he's been pretty much everywhere. I mean, his defense is kind of what it is, and it's a challenge. I mean, I'm really interested in seeing how Jalen Hurts handles this defense because I don't think in terms of its personnel that they're all that good on that side of the ball. But Pease will throw a lot of stuff at Hurts, a lot of stuff. I mean, I've seen veteran quarterbacks, I mean, Peyton Manning type quarterbacks working against a Dean Pease defense and be flummoxed by all the different looks and all the changes and all the inversions and all the things that he does before the snap that just drive a quarterback crazy, even a veteran quarterback crazy. And I think that's going to be the real challenge for Hurts is to handle all these looks, all these changes, all those guys jumping in and out. It's probably going to be a lot for him. It's probably going to be a lot for him to process mentally in the first game. And I think I think this game will tell you a lot into where Jalen Hurts is in terms of his mental development. as an NFL quarterback, because regardless of where Pease has been, whether it's been in New England or whether it's been in Tennessee or whether it's been in Baltimore, everybody around the league, they always say the same thing. It is no fun going against Dean Pease's defense. He gives you a mental workout. And I think that's what the Eagles have to be prepared for on Sunday.
Yeah, Ray, I have some matchups here jotted down. I wanted to go through them with both of you guys. Just matchups that kind of caught my eye for this game. The first one is Calvin Ridley. Of course, Jonathan Gannon wouldn't say whether or not Slay is going to travel with him, but it would make a lot of sense with Julio gone. What's the biggest challenge facing a guy like Calvin Ridley?
I think he's a terrific pattern runner. I think he's a guy that runs routes with great discipline, and he's strong. If he can get his hands on the ball, he's going to rip it away. I know there were a lot of people that were sort of surprised that the Falcons were willing to move on from Julio Jones. I get it. I mean, I really think that Ridley has reached that point where he's ready to be a number one receiver. And in terms of what you're talking about, Dave, I'm very interested to see how Gannon decides to play this, because we know that Slade likes to be he likes to isolate and he likes to play the other team's number one. He likes that challenge. There's no question who that guy is here. It's going to be Ridley, and it will be a challenge. I think that. And I don't want to be jumping ahead in your matchups, but to me, I think the key to this game really is the Eagles' front four against the Atlanta offensive line. The Atlanta offensive line, I think, is average at best. And I think the Eagles' defensive line has a chance to be really good. And if they win the battle at the line of scrimmage, which I think they can, then they'll get a lot of pressure on Matt Ryan, and that could be where the game turns.
Yeah, well, let's flip there, because you're right. If you look at both lines in this game, I think there is probably a decided advantage. If you look at the Eagles' defensive line, you're right. The Falcons were planning on starting our old buddy Josh Andrews, and then he got hurt. And have a rookie in there, Jalen Mayfield. Not the best. They have some players on that offensive line. Lindstrom's a pretty good player, and so they have some guys up there, but clearly not a strength. And then their defensive line, they have Grady Jarrett, and then not much else. No,
I mean they made a huge investment in Dante Fowler, and that just hasn't really worked out for them. Yeah, I mean, this is when I sized up this game. I really thought that the Eagles have the advantage at the line of scrimmage. I really do. I think the Eagles are better. I think their defensive line is really significantly better than Atlanta's offensive line. And I kind of feel the same way on the other side. Now, you guys would know better than me what Brandon Brooks' situation is. I mean, if his status for Sunday is in that much doubt, that will change things a little bit. But if the Eagles are healthy across the offensive line, I like them win that matchup too.
It looks like he's going to be fine. It looks like he'll be out there. At least that's the word from Dr. Lane Johnson.
Yeah, that's my new term for Lane, is Dr. Lane, because he's always giving us updates on other people's health, but we appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. If they're healthy, they have an advantage there. We talked about Kyle Pitts a little bit. So, Ray, let's say you're Jonathan Gannon. What are you doing here? I mean, how do you match up against a tight end who's that big, that fast, and that much of a threat?
He's really good. And Arthur Smith has been a coach who has always found ways to utilize tight ends of all various levels of ability. I mean, he's a 12 personnel guy. I mean, he loves to play through his tight ends. And I think one thing you're going to see is, and one thing he's going to almost certainly do, is he's going to make it hard to find Pitts. I mean, he's going to move him all over the place. Arthur Smith is a big pre-snap motion guy. And in fact, he very often, the guy who's motioning is the tight end. And they do a really good job of the motioning because it spreads out the defense. They get the double team block inside. They run a lot of zone blocking. I mean, that's the stuff he did in Tennessee. And when you have a back like Derrick Henry, that could be pretty devastating. Here he has Mike Davis, who's really more of a journeyman back, so I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball nearly as well. But they're going to motion Pitts all over the place. And I think they're going to go to him early and often. as I said earlier, I just think that he and Smith, to me, are very rare talents. I think that these are the kind of guys that can come into the league and have an impact like immediately. And if I were Gannon and I were looking at the Falcons right now, the player I'd probably be most worried about is Pitts. I mean, even in game one, I think his skill set is such that he's the kind of guy that can take over a game. I mean, I think he's really that good.
Is there anybody you would compare him to coming out with his skill set and that athleticism, speed, size, the whole package there? Keith Jackson has the record still for most catches by a rookie tight end with 81 for the Eagles and 88.
Really? I didn't know that still stood.
Still stands.
Yeah. I'll tell you who he reminds me a lot of a guy the Eagles drafted back in the 70s named Charlie Young, who the Eagles drafted, I think, 5th overall. I mean, he was a real high first round pick, almost a Southern Cal, and almost a physical match, almost exactly the same height, almost exactly the same weight, same kind of wingspan, ran like a big wide receiver and caught everything. And Charlie Young had a long career in the NFL, led the league in receiving a couple of times. That's when I watched him play at Florida, that's kind of who he reminded me of. And I think he's going to have that kind of impact, especially what happens with rookie players is sometimes the skill level is one thing, but if they don't get in the right system with the right coaching staff who knows how to utilize that, sometimes the guy never really realizes his full potential. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I mean, to me, I think Arthur Smith and his style of offense and the way he plays his tight ends, you plug Kyle Pitts in there. I mean, that's the perfect fit. So I think this, would not surprise me if these two guys are right there in the Rookie of the Year voting when it's all said and done.
Hey, Ray, one more on the matchups here. I mean, we talked about Jalen Hurts a little bit and what Dean Pease defense might do to him. But how do we think in general? Do we expect a spy from the Falcons to kind of keep an eye on him? Is that something we can kind of expect for a lot of these matchups this year?
I think coming out of the box, yes. Because and it's something that Pease has done before anyway. He's used spies before when the quarterback on the other side of the ball kind of dictates that. So I would expect to see a spy, maybe not every snap, but a lot of the time. And I would, because the mobility and the running part of it is absolutely going to have to be part of the game plan and what you're going to want Jalen Hurts to do, because frankly, he does it so well. It's going to be something you're going to have to account for. The only thing is I look at this Atlanta defense because I was thinking exactly that, Dave. Okay, I think that Pease is going to want to spy. Who's the spy? I guess Jones.
That's the guy I landed on.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one guy that I think has the athleticism to do it, it would probably be Deion Jones. And I would think you'll probably see all of that. Maybe not on every snap, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with that. And I think that Hurts. I think there's certain things that we know he can do already. And I believe Nick Sirianni when he talks about the growth that they saw with Hurts over the course of this summer, the improvement from day to day. And certainly there's no question about how hard the kid works to improve every day. I mean, we all could see that. The question is now comes Sunday, and the lights come on and the speed of the game increases and it becomes a bigger challenge. And I'm really curious to see how he handles this and, how the coaches handle this, because the Falcons don't have great personnel on defense, but they have a very smart coordinator who has a way of undressing young quarterbacks. And so, we'll see how well Nick Sirianni has prepared Jalen Hurts for this challenge.
I'm really curious how much Jalen will run this year compared to last year. Obviously, he's very good at it. I think they really want him to throw as much as possible and not run. I think it's kind of he's got it in his back pocket. He's good at it. I think they, you look at a lot of mobile quarterbacks really peak as players when they're not running as much anymore. I think it's funny that Randall Cunningham is the greatest running quarterback I've seen. The year he was the MVP with Minnesota with Billick, you take out kneel downs and he ran like 18 times all year because he just grew so much as a passer, which didn't happen here. You can see that they want to accelerate that process. I mean, in practice and training camp, Dave and I saw, he would rarely, he did it, but it was a last resort. It wasn't because where he needed to work was in the passing game.
Right.
We know he can do that. So I think there was a real focus in training camp on the passing part of it. That's in his back pocket. He could take off, but I'm really curious to see how big, because there were a couple of games last year. I think the one, gosh, he had like 122 rushing yards or something, and he ran a lot. But you could even see last year as he played more, he started doing it less. And I'm curious how much of a factor it'll be.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that you could see, and you could see it this summer, they really want to develop his ability to win games from the pocket, which, as you have to do with any young quarterback, regardless of his running ability. He has to be able to win games from the pocket. He has to be able to see the field, find the open receiver, and deliver the football. And that's the one area where he has to grow the most. The other part of it, I think he's doing pretty well. But the passing, the footwork, the mechanics, the accuracy, that's really what we're kind of talking about. But I think, Aunt Rube, I think that that the running part of his game will be kind of a week-to-week proposition, largely kind of dictated by the defense you're playing. And we've talked a lot about Dean Pease's defense. And what has really given Pease's defenses trouble over the years is RPO stuff, because he requires so much movement in his front seven, and he has those linebackers jumping in and jumping out. Part of that idea of trying to confuse the offense. Our good RPO teams have a way of catching all that defense in motion, and they decide, if the quarterback is smart enough, he can see their open receivers there. If he can just see the field, they can turn that thing around on that defense and make big plays out of the RPO. So I would think that in their preparation this week, that they've got a pretty extensive RPO package there, because that's one way to neutralize a lot of the movement and a lot of the jumping around and the trickery that Pease likes to do. RPO stuff can turn that around and turn it actually to the offense's advantage. And with Hurts, we've seen him in RPO where he runs it very comfortably. So, I think we certainly didn't see any of it in the preseason, but I think you're probably going to see it Sunday.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if anything we saw in the preseason is what we see in week one. Ray, before we let you go, we'll get a prediction from you. We will do that. But overall thoughts on this season and this team, what do you want to see? What are you most excited to see? And what do you think could be the outlook?
I haven't had a chance to talk as ever with you guys, but I'll just kind of off the top of my head. I don't think this team's bound for big things this year. The division, I don't think the division is a whole lot better than it was last year. I think it's going to kind of be a big muddle for most of the year, which means that they might hang around. But in terms of being a viable playoff kind of team, I don't see it. What I'm looking for is just growth, just from week to week, to see this team grow, to see this team improve, to see kind of philosophies emerge on both sides of the ball where you can say, okay, yeah, now we get an identity, know what you want to do, know what you want to be. And right now we don't know any of that, of what this thing is, but just kind of establish early an identity on both sides of the ball, and then see how that grows over the course of the year. A little bit like, you guys were through not that I think it's going to be as bleak as what it was with Andy that first year, 99. But that was an awful year for a good stretch. But towards the second half of the year, you began to see some things coming together. Certainly when McNabb came in at quarterback, things definitely improved. But by the end of that year, they played the Patriots, they played the Rams, they beat them both. And okay, at the end, the win-loss record is still ugly. But at the end of the year, you could say, this team's getting better. This team's getting better. They've identified some weaknesses. They've identified some players. And with an off season and another training camp, this team could be significantly better next year. Well, that certainly proved to be the case. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here. I think if you asked me for a win total, I would say maybe 8 is where I would come down on this team. But what I would like to see it be kind of at the end of the season, you win 8 games, but you feel like this team's moving in the right direction. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, is at the end of the year, you feel like, yeah, this coaching staff, these guys have kind of got it moving in the right direction. That's, I think, to me, is kind of a best case scenario, that this year is a building block towards a better next year and the year after.
Ray, how old do you think Dave is? Dave, what were you doing in 1999?
I was really studying the Eagles from my 5th grade classroom.
I keep forgetting how young guys like Dave are.
Ray, what I remember about 99, it was already a really good defense. I mean, they had Trotter and they had Troy Vincent. And that defense in 99 was very good. It was even actually good in 98 in that awful season. The issues were quarterback and the offense, the play calling. We knew by the end of 99, I think anyone who was around that team knew they were really on the right track, and they played hard, and they were tough, and Andy was getting through to them. And I think the way the schedule plays out for the Eagles this year, I think it kind of gives them a chance to do that. Because I know I did my week by week predictions. I think I had them 4-7, and then finishing 9-8. So that's a little extreme, but the schedule really does favor. It could be a tough first couple months, but the last stretch is going to give them a chance to win some games, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's one of the things I worry about a little bit, because the early part of the schedule, it's tough. There's no doubt. It would be very helpful if they could win this game on Sunday, because I think it is very winnable. I think it's kind of a flip of a coin game in many ways, but I think it's winnable. But if they don't win it, then you're looking at the realistic prospect that maybe you're 1-5.
Yeah.
And for a young team with a young coaching staff, you don't want to be there. So this game's important to just try and get the right tone set. But Rube, I think you're right. You look at the schedule; they begin December with a Jets game, and then they finish out with all division games. And that's a situation where, assuming that they haven't been totally wrecked by injuries, that December part, the fifth part of the season, gives you a chance to finish on a really good note.
All right, Ray, prediction time.
Like I said, I think the matchup here that really strongly favors the Eagles is their defensive line against Atlanta's front. And I respect Matt Ryan, but he's not at age 36, Mr. Mobility. And if the Eagles' defensive line gets the kind of pressure I think they're going to get, that's where I think the game can be won. So I think it's going to be high scoring, because I think Atlanta's going to make some plays and they have some playmakers. But I think when it's all said and done, I think the Eagles are going to win, and I'm going to say 27-24.
All right, there you have it, Ray. We thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you next week.
Look forward to it. See you then, guys.
Thanks, Ray.
Always great catching up with Ray. We miss him in the off season.
Ray, I was waiting for his prediction, and the way he set it up, I thought he was going to go like 3-4 wins, maybe 5 wins. He was painting a dire picture, and then he goes 8 wins. Oh, did you have the same reaction? I thought he was going up.
I don't know. I think I like that setup, though. It's the old Andy, the Jeff Lurie, Andy Reid press conference. I'm going to tell you all the reasons I'm going to fire him, but I'm keeping him.
That was something else. That was at the end of the 2011 season, 10 years ago. Hard to believe. And we're sitting there like, oh my God, he's firing Andy Reid. And then he's like, but on second thought, that was
the most wild press conference ever.
Jeffrey, you're playing with our emotions.
Jeffrey, did you just tell us every reason why you should fire this guy and then say I'm not?
He's lost the locker room. Players are not listening to him. There's no discipline. We were the 3rd most penalized team in the NFC. It goes through this whole litany of things. Yeah, that was interesting.
But we'll keep him. Yeah, but we appreciate Ray taking the time, and we'll talk to him again next week as we get ready for week 2. Rube, I figured we'd end this podcast, just our last chance to look at this team before we see them in game action. I figured we'd just go through what we think some of their strengths are and what some of their potential weaknesses could be.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the strengths are the two lines. And it's been that way for most of the last decade. And, we when three of Andy Reid's guys are kind of anchors of your two lines, it speaks to the consistency and the carryover from Andy through Chip, through Doug to Nick Sirianni and Fletcher and BG and Kelsey. And then you add Brandon Brooks and Lane. Both lines are stocked and they're loaded. And there's not a lot of teams. There's not a lot of teams that have an O-line and a D-line like this. And I think those two lines are going to make up for some deficiencies at other positions. They're going to need to. They're going to have to carry this team. Whatever they accomplish on both sides of the ball, it's going to start with those two lines.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I did some research, and we knew about the draft picks. 12 of 19 of their last first-round picks have been linemen. But I looked up their salary cap situation. 41% of their adjusted salary cap figure is being used on linemen. It's
actually wrote about that last week.
It's incredible.
You have to research it. You could have checked my story.
I wanted to double check. I know you're not real good with numbers, so.
Well, they're spending more than any team in the league on the two lines combined.
Yeah, and it's not. There are a lot of teams who aren't even anywhere close to them.
Yeah,
there are a couple that are in the same ballpark, but this is their philosophy, and it's amazing that through 4 coaches now it hasn't changed.
Yeah, and that tells you. And I think Andy brought that here, and when he got here in '99, and I think it became a Howie. It's something that Howie. And Joe Banner was big on it, and Howie just kind of has, learned from it and agrees with it and has carried it on. And I'm sure Jeff Lurie feels the same way. You start with both lines. Andy Reid, when he first came in and said, that's going to be the focus, it was like, well, what about receivers and running backs and quarterback? It's like, no, I don't care about those guys. I'm just going to two good lines and we'll win a lot of games. And he was right. And they did. And, you still need to be a little better than what they had at some positions, but philosophically, it's a sound philosophy. And they're so young at other positions; they have the luxury of being able to pay these veteran guys who are going to have big contracts. It's going to be weird, and there's going to be a day in the not too distant future where Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are not on this team, and that's going to be really weird because. It's been a decade. They've been they're 3 all-time greats on this team. And people should enjoy them while they're here because they're all special players and special people.
Let's go to a weakness. We'll pick a weakness for me on this team.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's really, I'm going to say wide receivers. The weakness is just, we just don't know. There's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't think it's a strength because none of these, we talk about Devontae and Jalen and Quez. They got 38 career catches among them, the 3 of them. And Greg Ward does what he does. And he's a nice, solid guy, but this is an unknown quantity. And until they prove that they're a strength, I'm going to call them a weakness because I've seen Quez catch 7 passes and have a great training camp. I've seen Jalen catch 31 passes and have a decent up and down camp. And I've seen Devontae play in college and have an incredible career and have a good training camp. But it's all hypothetical until they do it on Sunday. So, we certainly seen a lot of wide receivers come and go around here who have not panned out. So until they do it on Sundays, I'm going to withhold judgment.
That's fair. All right. You want a strength from me?
Yeah.
I'll give you Jonathan Gannon. I'm sold on Jonathan Gannon. Look, he had a reputation before he got here. He was highly coveted. So I was really interested to see what he would bring here. I got to tell you, I've been really impressed by Not just the things he says, but you can see it on the field. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's ambitious, the type of defense he wants to run, because he does want to be so multiple and he wants to go game plan to game plan. But if he pulls this off, Rube, this defense could surprise a lot of people. We were talking about Gannon today, and I'll say here, I think this guy might be a head coach in a few years. I think he's that special.
Yeah, and we talked to Jonathan Gannon for about 15 minutes today, and I just love talking. I just love listening to him talk football. And we were talking after he spoke to the media, like there's not a lot of stuff there that kind of goes into stories that we're writing. We're not going to. It's not that kind of information, but it's just interesting to hear him talk football and the intricacies of his defense. And it's dizzying sometimes when he starts going into detail about some of the things that he believes. And he doesn't talk specifics, but he'll talk generalities of what he believes in. It's just great to hear him talk football. And I could listen to him talk football all night. And there's been a handful of guys that have come through here since I started doing this that I knew would be head coaches. Jeff Fisher, there was no question. Just there's guys who just the way they carry themselves, the way they speak, the way the players, you can see the respect they have. John Harbaugh was a no-brainer. Matt Nagy, and I can't even tell you why, and I don't know if he's going to be a good coach or not. Did make the playoffs, but you could just tell. Just there's something about some guys like that, and Sean McDermott was like that as well. And I think those are the four guys that there was no doubt in my mind they'd be head coaches. With Harbs, I thought it might be college, at big time college. UCLA wouldn't even return his calls. Imagine that. And I feel that way about Gannon. There's no doubt in my mind in the next few years he'll be a head coach, even as a defensive guy. There's not a lot. Well, Fisher, Harbaugh, McDermott were all defensive guys. That's interesting. That just occurred to me, but. He's impressive, and I think it's a solid defense. I really do. I don't think there's a weak spot once Rodney McLeod is playing. I'm not sure what Marcus Epps is going to give you, or Kayvon, whoever's out there, but it's a pretty solid group, and they're better at every position than they were last year.
They are, which that does lead me to my weakness, though. Is the depth at some positions on this roster leaves a little bit to be desired. And we saw that during the preseason when those depth players were playing. Now, look, a lot of those guys have been cut already, but particularly the secondary, the depth scares me a little bit. I think the starters are solid, but your top backups at safety are unproven Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace. And I'm a fan of Kayvon, but he missed a lot of time in training camp and he hasn't played much. And then at the cornerback position, Josiah Scott's hurt. He's your backup nickel. And then you have Zach McPherson, who flashed at times during training camp, but he's still a fourth-round rookie. So the depth in general on this team, specifically in the secondary and maybe like defensive tackle, some other spots, leaves a little bit to be desired.
I would say especially on defense. I think on offense, I think they have okay. I think I like their depth when they're healthy on the O-line, Driscoll, Herbie, Dickerson. I think they're pretty solid, depth on the O-line.
Running backs.
Dillard, if he's got to play left tackle, he'll get you through a game or two. They're running back, they got some running backs. They got, if you have to get Jordan Howard up, he can give you 20 carries for 80 yards. I think it's, they have tight ends, defensive depth, other than defensive end. I mean, linebacker depth, safety depth, corner depth, D-tackle depth is a concern. Yeah, no doubt.
All right. You got anything else before we wrap this up? Do you want to give a prediction now?
Well, no. So I gave my prediction was 9-8. Ray said 8-9. I need a number from you.
Oh, for the season, I'm 8-9.
You're 8-9?
Yeah, I have 8 wins. Yeah, I've been saying 7 to 9, so I'll split it and just say 8-9. How about for this game?
I'm going to Eagles, and part of it is based on I don't see a whole lot of wins in the first 6 weeks, so I think they need to get this one, but it's not really a valid reason. It's a tough place to play, although the Falcons are actually 9-15 the last 3 years at home. They used to be unbeaten. They used to go 7-1 every year back in the Georgia Dome. They're 9-15 at Mercedes-Benz. I think it opened in 18, I believe.
Beautiful stadium, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I like the matchups up front. I think that's where the Eagles have a real advantage, especially that D line against that Atlanta O line. I think that's a real advantage for them. Like we said, if this team's going to do anything, that D line has to dominate, and I think they're going to have a chance to do that Sunday.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I'm picking the Eagles too in this game. I don't think they're going to blow Atlanta out of the water. And the one thing that gave me pause was facing a veteran quarterback like Matt Ryan. At least he's a steady force there. You know what you're going to get from him. But overall, I think the Eagles are a better team. I think they have a better roster than the Falcons.
Yeah. I mean, Pitts is scary. I mean, who's going to cover Kyle Pitts? I don't know the answer. That's going to take it's going to take a village. But I think you're right. And again, we don't really know. You see so many surprises on opening day, upsets, just surprising scores. Because nobody knows. That's what makes week one so much fun. But I can't wait.
Yeah, we won't really have a feel for this team. I really liked what Lane Johnson said to us on Thursday about kind of knowing what a team is. He said even in the Super Bowl year, they didn't know what they were until he said it was the Chargers game when he started to figure out like, oh, this team might be special. So even if win or lose this game,
we couldn't find the entrance to the stadium that game.
Yeah, we walked all around that little soccer stadium.
Yeah.
What was that? StubHub? Was that the field? StubHub Field or yeah. In any case, win or lose in week one, I don't think we're really going to know the trajectory of this team after 1 week.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you'll learn as much from games like Tampa and Kansas City as from any other games. You might not win those games, but how do they battle? How close are they? Do they stay in the game? How do they fight? It's going to be a fun year. Let's get going. Let's get started. Can't wait till Sunday.
We're excited. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click like and subscribe there too. Rube just had a coughing fit, so he couldn't interrupt me there. And that's the best win of the week for Rube. I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.